Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today's deep dive is, well, it's a little different.
Okay.
We're going to be tackling something that's like super personal. And let's be real, probably something most of us have at least thought about.
Hmm.
Betrayal, like full-on emotional betrayal.
Yeah, heavy stuff.
Now, before you think we've gone all self-help on, don't worry, we're not suddenly relationship gurus.
Right.
Our jumping off point today is this fictional podcast script.
Okay.
And it's about this guy, Pedro, who's dealing with the aftermath of his girlfriend cheating on him.
Oh, wow.
But here's the thing. We're not here to give advice or anything.
Gotcha.
We're more interested in using Pedro's story as a way to dig into the psychology of betrayal, and that whole messy process of healing.
I'm in. Let's do it.
So are you ready to dive into this?
Absolutely.
Because this script, it doesn't hold back. It gets real raw and real emotional. And, along the way, I think we'll uncover some pretty fascinating psychological insights, things that might even resonate with your own experiences. Like, one detail that really stuck with me was how Pedro, in this, state of total shock, he mistakes his neighbor's knock for his ex's. It's like this deep-seated fear, this sense that she's still around. It's messing with his reality. And what's so interesting about that is how it shows how deeply betrayal can shake our sense of safety and security. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's like you're describing a moment where Pedro's whole world just gets flipped upside down. That feeling of not being able to trust your own reality, that's something I think a lot of people can relate to after being betrayed. It triggers this primal fear response, almost like fight or flight. But with Pedro, it seems like he's kind of frozen in place.
Yeah, like his brain is short-circuiting, trying to make sense of this impossible situation. And the script doesn't sugarcoat any of it. It lays bare that initial reaction, the shock, the confusion, that feeling of being utterly blindsided. You really get the sense that he's almost emotionally numb, like the gravity of it all hasn't quite hit him yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And that numbness, that inability to think straight, it's a textbook response to trauma.
Hmm.
And when you think about it, betrayal at its core, it is a form of emotional trauma.
Mm-hmm.
It shatters those basic assumptions we have about trust and safety, leaving us feeling disoriented and incredibly vulnerable.
It's true. And what's interesting is how, at first, Pedro tries to deal with this trauma all alone.
Yeah.
He pushes back on the idea of therapy almost as if he's either in denial or trying to downplay how much he's hurting.
Yeah, that's a common reaction, actually.
Hmm.
You pointed out his initial resistance to therapy, and it makes sense. A lot of people see it as a last resort. But his story and what you're showing us here is that therapy can be incredibly powerful for understanding and processing those emotions that come with betrayal. And that's true no matter how severe we think it is. And it's like he's almost embarrassed to even consider it. Like he should be able to handle it on his own.
Totally. It's this I'm fine, I'll just power through
Right.
mentality.
Which so many of us do.
Exactly. But thankfully for Pedro, he's got a good friend looking out for him, someone who sees through that facade and finally convinces him to at least try therapy.
Yeah, that's such a crucial detail you picked up on, because let's be real, sometimes we need that nudge from someone who cares about us.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who can see what we might be too caught up in to see ourselves.
It's like we're so deep in the trenches of our own pain that we can't recognize the way out. And that's where that outside perspective can be a lifesaver.
Exactly. And for Pedro, taking that step to actually go to therapy, it's like a turning point in his journey. Remember how you mentioned that feeling of catharsis he experiences when he finally opens up to his therapist?
Oh, yeah, it's huge. Like he's been holding on to all this pain, and suddenly he has this safe space to just let it all out, to actually process those emotions he's been bottling up.
Right. That's the beauty of therapy. It gives you this structured and supportive setting to really dig into those tough emotions. And often what happens is you start to see patterns and gain insights that you wouldn't have on your own.
Absolutely. And it's not just the therapy. You also highlighted how Pedro turns to journaling as a way to work through everything.
Oh yeah, journaling. It's like having conversation with yourself on paper.
Right. And in his case, it's like he's using both external and internal tools to heal. Therapy provides that external support, while journaling gives him this private space to reflect and process everything at his own pace.
It's so smart because it allows us to untangle our thoughts and feelings without judgment, which is so important for healing.
Definitely. And as he's processing everything, we start to see him find his footing again. He gets back into exercising, reconnects with friends, rediscovers old passions. It's like he's slowly but surely putting the pieces of himself back together.
That's resilience in action right there. It's not about erasing the pain or pretending it never happened. It's about rebuilding a life filled with joy and purpose despite the hurt.
It's inspiring. And it reminds us that healing isn't always a straight line. There's this powerful moment in the script where Pedro is out for a run and he spots this couple that totally reminds him of him and his ex.
Oof, yeah, that's gotta sting.
Right. It would have been so easy for him to spiral back into anger or bitterness in that moment. But he doesn't. He makes a different choice.
You can really feel the shift. He
Mhm.
acknowledges the sadness, but instead of letting it consume him, he uses it as fuel to keep moving forward. I mean, talk about turning a negative into a positive. It's incredible.
It really is. And it speaks to the power of reframing, like you were talking about earlier. It's about making that conscious choice to look at our experiences differently, to find the opportunity for growth even in the toughest moments.
Absolutely. It's shifting from why me to what can I learn from this? And that shift alone, that willingness to find meaning in the midst of pain, is often what sparks real personal growth.
And in Pedro's case, that growth manifests in a really tangible way, right? He channels all of his emotions into creating this incredible painting called Healing, which becomes like a visual representation of his journey.
Wow. It's like he's literally transforming his pain into art, taking that inner turmoil and putting it out there on canvas. And that act of creation, that's another layer of healing.
It's powerful. And, speaking of reclaiming his narrative, there's this point in the script where Pedro starts to really reflect on the relationship with fresh eyes. He begins to recognize those red flags he might have missed before. Like he's piecing together a puzzle in hindsight.
And that's such a key part of healing. It's not about him blaming himself for anything. It's about gaining a deeper understanding of what was really going on in that relationship.
Yeah.
By looking back, he's empowering himself to make healthier choices moving forward.
Exactly. He's taking his power back. Instead of letting this experience define him, he's using it as a springboard for growth, for becoming more self-aware.
Yes. And what's even more remarkable is that he doesn't keep these realizations bottled up.
Yeah.
He actually decides to share his story with others.
When I read that part of the script, it really hit me. The fact that he could take something so personal, so painful, and turn it into something that could potentially help other people, it's just incredible.
It speaks volumes about his strength, but also with the power of vulnerability. By opening up and sharing his experience, he's not only connecting with others who might be going through the same thing, but he's also helping to break down the stigma that's often attached to betrayal and heartbreak.
It's like he's saying, hey, this happened to me and it hurt like hell, but I'm still here and I'm healing. That kind of message, that hope, it can make all the difference for someone who's struggling.
Absolutely. And, even though Pedro's story is fictional, the themes it touches on are incredibly relatable. I mean, we've all experienced some form of betrayal in our lives, whether it's from a romantic partner, a friend, even family.
That's so true. And as much as every experience is different, there are these common threads that bind us together. The shock, the pain, the confusion, and that struggle to heal and move on.
And I think that's what makes this deep dive so powerful. Pedro's journey reminds us that even when we feel lost and alone, we're not. And that with time, with support, and the willingness to learn and grow, healing is always within reach.
It's been such an eye-opening journey exploring Pedro's story. And I really appreciate you bringing your expertise to the table, connecting these events to real-life psychology. Before we wrap things up, if you had to give one piece of advice to someone who's dealing with the aftermath of betrayal, what would it be?
Be kind to yourself. Healing, it's not a race, and it doesn't always follow a straight path. Allow yourself to feel everything. Don't judge yourself for it. And remember that asking for help, that's not a weakness. It's a sign of incredible strength.
Those are powerful words to live by. And on that note, we've come to the end of our deep dive into the complexities of betrayal and the path to healing. We've explored the raw emotions, the psychological impact, and most importantly, the resilience of the human spirit. If this conversation has resonated with you, we encourage you to check out our show notes, where you'll find resources on relationships, mental health, and the transformative power of storytelling. Until next time, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.